Hello and welcome to the Dark Reading News Desk from Black Hat USA 2025 in Las Vegas, where I am joined by Vaisha Bernard, Chief Hacker at iSecurity, to talk about his new research titled Consent and Compromise, Abusing Entra OAuth for Fun and Access to Internal Microsoft Applications. Thank you so much for joining us, Vaisha.
You're welcome.
So, I understand I'm getting the scoop. You have not given your presentation. That's at 1:30 this afternoon. Tell me about this blockbuster piece of research. First of all, I love the title, for fun. And so tell me a little bit about why you took this on and what it's all about.
Yeah, so thank you. It was actually an accident how I ended up doing this research.
No kidding.
You see, I'm easily distracted. And I had to write a piece of documentation, and my eye fell on one of those links that Microsoft uses everywhere, aka .ms/something. That's a URL shortener that Microsoft uses. But there's always something behind the slash.
Right.
And my mind started wandering, and I thought, what would happen if I just visit aka.ms without the slash?
Fair question.
Yeah.
And what happened?
I ended up on a login screen.
Oh.
And you know what I did? I tried logging in.
And did it
with
work?
my own account.
Did it work?
Nope.
So what happened next?
I was still distracted. I found another .ms domain, eng.ms, and there suddenly it did something. I seemed to have been logged in. I got a consent prompt to consent to an application. I clicked accept, and then I got a strange error message.
Okay.
That got me intrigued, because something seemed misconfigured there.
Yeah, there's something goofy. Yeah.
That looked like an internal Microsoft portal that I
Okay.
shouldn't have been able to access, and definitely not have been able to log in. I dug a little further. I found a second site of eng.ms, and there I could log in with my own account. And I
So your own credentials.
just my own Microsoft credentials
Okay.
and my own Microsoft tenant, but I got access to an internal Microsoft service.
Oh.
So I actually found the vulnerability first, and then still need to do the research because I didn't know what happened.
It was really just sort of good fortune
Yeah.
and
yeah,
curiosity. So tell us what this means more broadly.
Yeah. So when I then started the research, I dug into what went wrong, and I found that there was a common misconfiguration happening, where the implementation of the authorization in this custom web application was done in a way that it would allow people from different organizations or different Microsoft tenants to log in, but they didn't check the actual tenant where people came from.
So there was no.
And-
Oh, yeah, okay.
And the person who probably registered these applications knew that they would be used from different tenants, from different organizations. So they registered as a general multi-tenant application, which meant that anybody with a Microsoft tenant could also use that application. So me, with just an outsider, could register that application as well, and then use that to log in to a Microsoft service. I found out that, so I was curious, so how often would this occur?
Yeah.
I thought if this happens at one place, it might be misconfigured at other places as well. So that's when I dug into it. I enumerated the attack surface of Microsoft, which turns out to be over 100,000 subdomains and domain names that I could find.
Wow.
And I scanned all of those to see if they were using Entra for authentication, and if any of those were configured to be multi-tenant applications as well. Turns out there were, I think, 1,400 services that used Entra for authentication. They're like using their own product, I can imagine.
Yeah.
And of those, 176 were actually configured as this multi-tenant setup. So I had a look at each one of those, and 22 were misconfigured. So in the end, I got access to 22 internal Microsoft services, ranging from their build environment where they're building Windows, to a portal where they're tracking all the risks to the organization itself. Really confidential and sensitive data.
I believe the technical term for that is yikes.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is. Right. So tell me what would be the worst case scenario that a malicious actor could do with this kind of access?
If a malicious actor would have found this vulnerability, I think it is a chained attack that they would have been able to perform, because this portal that tracked all the risks to the organization also contained security risks and also contained unmitigated security risks. So I actually had a list of all the 0 days that were already identified but not yet mitigated in the whole Microsoft organization. And the access to the build environment actually allowed me to execute code on their build environment. So I would have been able to change Windows builds to do anything there. It,
Wow.
it was a very deep level of access.
So I assume, and I want to be clear, this hasn't been exploited in the wild to your knowledge at this point.
No,
you were able to
immediately
find it.
reported this to Microsoft when I found it. I reported each case individually because they were all individual applications.
Sure.
And it turned out to be a sort of heads-up match after a while, because they scaled up a project team, scaled up a hunting team as well to hunt for the vulnerability in their own environment. I think I found most of them first before they did, so that was a
Made
nice
their job pretty easy.
And I had a really good time working together with them to get it mitigated. So they now have put a lot in place to prevent this from happening in their whole environment. And also a lot of monitoring in place to see if anybody tries exploiting this vulnerability now.
So Microsoft really stepped up and was
Yeah, they
receptive to your find.
They did.
Tell me a little bit about this. I'm hearing more and more about this misconfiguration, and I think as the SOC gets more and more and the stack gets more and more complicated,
Yep.
This configuration issue is going to persist, I think.
Yep.
There has been a push amongst the software vendor community, this default by design, shipped by default on its systems, its most secure settings, I guess is the way I want to say it.
Yep.
Is that something that you think it does, make it more difficult to deploy? It makes it more difficult maybe for individual clients. But do you think that this is something that vendors need to champion more and ship these products in their most secure configurations?
I think that's a good approach, but there's always a catch. And in this specific case, we saw that the configuration happens because of a shared responsibility. The application developers, they follow their guidelines, and the one who implements the application in the Entra environment is probably a different team or a different person, and they follow their guidelines. And they both did their job.
Okay.
But the responsibility of checking something lies in the middle. And if none of those two parties know that, then they probably think the other has done their job correctly.
And it falls through the cracks.
Yep. And this is this implementation of using Entra OAuth for authentication. It's good because you consolidate where your identity attack surface lies.
Yeah.
But then you also have a single point of failure somewhere, and this can also increase the risk you're exposed to as an organization.
So what do cyber teams and cyber professionals need to take away from your research? I mean, we know that this particular issue has been resolved, but sort of what is the lesson learned?
That's interesting, because it is not only contained to Microsoft. Everybody could have made this misconfiguration. It turns out that of our own customer base, 2% of them also had this misconfiguration in their environment, and we helped them mitigate it. So we are also releasing a small PowerShell snippet that could be used to hunt for this misconfiguration in your own environment. So people really need to take action to check if this misconfiguration is present in their own environment.
How many of these environments do you think exist in the enterprise space?
Where the risky applications are when organizations have their own development teams, implement ASP.NET applications that use Entra for authentication. And if these applications are configured as multi-tenant applications in Entra, but the applications developers do not check in the token of which tenant the user that tries to log in comes from, then they are vulnerable. So this is something that we recommend every organization at the moment check for. It is a responsibility of organizations themselves. It is not a new vulnerability. It is not something like a 0-day, but it's just a very common misconfiguration.
Right. Okay, so where can our audience and where can security pros find out more about your research and importantly get that snippet where they can do their own hunting for this?
I just registered a very catchy domain name, so it's consentandcompromise.com.
All right, and they can go there and find out all that they need to.
Yep.
Vaisha, thank you so much for joining us today. Best of luck on your presentation. Thank you for giving us the scoop on it. We very much appreciate that.
You're very welcome.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you for having me.
Yes. This has been a conversation at Black Hat USA 2025 at the Dark Reading News Desk. Thanks so much for joining us.